We have some students that are going to have to leave. First of all, let our students speak, and please question, not speeches. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Oh, you're at it? Okay. Yes, sir. And then we'll go over here.
Thank you, Senator.
If you tell me your name and where you're from.
My name is Joshua Mathis. I'm actually a student at Unversity, and thank you for coming out. During your speech, you mentioned that you have support, that you want a government that leaves you alone. And you've been one of the fiercest opponents of federal interference with local autonomy and local rights. So how can you justify killing last year's D.C. budget autonomy bill and also interfering with the local legislation of our locally elected government?
Good question. First of all, when partisans discuss an issue, some enjoy hearing one side, so I'll tell you the other side of this. I didn't kill any D.C. autonomy bill. They could have had a vote at any point in time. I have no power to stop any legislation. I'm in the minority, and I put on amendments that they did not want to vote on. So they perceived that as killing the bill, but my intention was to get votes on some amendments. And they have the majority. The Democrat majority could have easily voted mine down, but they didn't choose to vote on them. So it's kind of interesting, like right now we're having this gun debate, and they say, well, I'm preventing the debate from happening. I'm not preventing any debate from happening. They just have to agree to vote and to move forward. They chose not to vote. On D.C. autonomy, I'm of two minds. Do I think maybe D.C. could have more autonomy? Maybe. But I also know that the Constitution put D.C. under Congress's purview, and that we give D.C. money from the rest of the country, from the tax receipts. So I think that oversight on the money that we spend, it is incumbent, it's a responsibility of the Constitution and a budgetary responsibility that we have oversight on the money that we spend from the U.S. Treasury in D.C. So I think it is a tough road to walk, but I'm willing to look at budgetary authority and see if we can come to a resolution.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Julian Lewis. I'm a senior political science major from Memphis, Tennessee. I would just like to thank you for coming to Howard University and speaking with us. My question is, well, first of all, I'm a former White House intern for President Obama. And I would just like to say the President is doing an excellent job. I'm also a national field organizer for 1911 United. It's one of the only African American super PACs for President Obama in the entire country. We helped raise over $80,000. You said that the Republican Party is a big proponent of voting rights. And I have been traveling along with members of my organization all over the country across 30 states, registering African Americans to vote at a higher rate in 2012 than in 2008, because the Republican Party has been using their state legislature and their governments to prevent African Americans from voting because they didn't want to elect President Obama. So I'm asking you, how can we believe what you're saying in regards to voting rights when we honestly feel, based on our intellectual ability to gauge whether you can connect with us or not? How can you say that, sir?
What I would say is me being here today, me trying to open this dialogue is that I'm trying to say the Republican Party is interested in the African American community and trying to convince some that our ideas, maybe not all immediately, but some that our ideas are best for people having hope and jobs. As far as trying to prevent, I think it's important to know in the history what happened. Democrats in the South were very, very harsh. Almost all Democrats, okay? That's who ran the governments. And they did have tests at the polls, literacy tests and special tests. And guess what? If you were white and you came forward, you didn't have to do the test. If you were black, you had to do the test, and you didn't pass the test. People were scared and intimidated and preventing from voting. I think if you liken using a driver's license to literacy tests, you demean the horror of what happened in the 40s and 50s, maybe probably from 1910 all the way through 1960s in the South. It was horrific. Nobody is in favor of that. No Republican is in favor of that. But showing your driver's license to have an honest election, I think, is not unreasonable. And I think that's the main thing that Democrats have been doing.
Yes, sir. I'll get to it.
Thank you, Senator, for coming. We really appreciate it. My name is Emmanuel Lewis. I'm a junior health sciences major here at Howard University and a member of the Howard University Rotary Court. And my question is, I believe that we must first define which Republican Party, and this is what I want to ask you. Are we discussing the Republican Party before 19th century Republican Party, Abraham Lincoln Republican Party, or are we discussing post-1968 Republican Party, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan? And my question for you is, which one do you identify with?
I think that's a great question, and that hits the nail on the head exactly as to what our obstacles are, because people, including those who may have just clapped, perceive there as being completely different parties. And you don't object to the party of emancipation and voting rights and citizenship and all of that, of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. The argument that I'm trying to make is we haven't changed. We don't talk about it. I'm either going to convince you or not, but my argument is there are some of us who haven't changed, who are still part of the party that you liked, but there are part of us who truly believe Reagan was still part of that. We don't see an abrupt difference. We don't see all of a sudden. See, we see horrible Jim Crow and horrible racism that happened in the 30s, 40s, 50s. It was all Democrats. It wasn't Republicans. Now, did some of them switch over and become Republicans? Yes. But the Republican Party primarily were not those people. And so it's an argument, an obstacle. I'll give you one example. The first, one of the African-American U.S. senators was a guy named, blanking on his name, from Massachusetts. Brooks, Edmund Brooks. And his comment was, I thought a pretty interesting comment. His comment was, if Democrats had the incredible history of abolition, emancipation, voting rights, and of being for all of the Civil War amendments, you'd hear about it all the time, because Democrats are good at talking about stuff like that. He said Republicans have done a terrible job, and that's why I think we have to resurrect some of this. I mean, how many of you would have, if I would have said, who do you think the founders of the NAACP are? Do you think they were Republicans or Democrats? Would everybody in here know they were all Republicans? And I don't mean that to be insulting. I don't know what you know if you don't, I mean, I'm trying to find out what the connection is. But the thing is that I think the general public in the Republican Party hasn't talked enough about the great history and interaction between the Republican Party and Black history and voting rights in our country. And I would try to make the argument, and it's an uphill battle. I mean, frankly, it is an uphill battle for me to try to convince you that we haven't changed. But that's part of me being here, and that's what I'm trying to do anyway.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Quanda Trice, and I'm a Navy veteran from Murray, Kentucky.
Great.
I am a doctoral student here at Howard University, majoring in political science. My question is that this week in Kentucky, we've had a lot of victories this week, including the legalization of a hemp bill for industrial purposes. My question to you is, being from Callaway County, McCracken County, and all of those different places in that nook and cranny, there have been such a large number of African Americans who have been incarcerated for drug issues. My question to you is, how are you going to take this industrialized new economic boost and actually allow African Americans, other people that have been disenfranchised, the poor, to actually benefit from this industrialization that's going forth in our great state?
Thank you for the question. I think it's a good question. It's also an example of, if you want to see, am I trying to work with other sides? Am I maybe different than some Republicans you've ever met? I signed a letter with our Democrat governor to ask for a waiver from No Child Left Behind. And I'm also lobbying the Democrat governor and working with our Democrat congressman from Louisville on the hemp issue to try to get a waiver at the federal level. We now have a state law that's passed, but we have to get a waiver from the federal level in order to grow it. Now, it is important that we distinguish hemp and drugs are different things. Hemp's going to be a crop. It's not a drug, it's a crop. You use it for paper, you use it for rope, you use it for clothing. biofuel, there's a lot of stuff. But it is a step forward. It was a huge victory. We won with 90% of the vote when we started out. But this was something Republicans and Democrats working together. I hope the growing of it, that everybody will benefit from it, including African Americans. On the incarceration thing, I've got the bill on mandatory minimums. Kentucky's actually made some steps forward with having more local drug court. And I also want to distinguish that I'm not talking about standing up here saying drugs are good. What I'm saying is that even the most benign of the drugs that we talk about, marijuana, I think if you use it too much, you will lose IQ points. I think if you use it too much, you won't show up for class. I think you'll eat too many Doritos. I think there's a lot of things that aren't good about it, but also if you make a mistake and choose to do that, kids are forever doing stuff until they're 25 that they shouldn't be doing, and then all of a sudden they turn 25 and a light bulb goes off or they get married or something, and they tend to settle down more. But I just don't want to see them in jail, and I will do everything I can to keep nonviolent criminals out of jail.